Thank you all for being here. This is me, Sharif Hassan, Head of Research Section. We would like to welcome you to our second workshop organized by Egypt Scholars Economic Society. This workshop is mainly dedicated for the papers submitted to our annual award. This year's theme is trade and growth. But before proceeding with our regular agenda, let me leave the mic for Dr. Hani Abdulatif, the President of the Economic Society, to speak about our achievements and activities since we launched our Economic Society in September last year. Dr. Hani, please, you may start.
Thank you, Dr. Sharif. Actually, it is my pleasure to welcome you all in our online workshop, Trade and Growth today. I usually start our events by introducing the audience to who we are and what we do. But today, please allow me to start in a different way. That's for at least two reasons. The first reason is that I believe most of the participants today already know who we are and what we do. The second reason is that I don't want to take much of your time to allow enough time for participants and for discussions. So today I would like to start this workshop by sharing with you the idea of the Economic Society and how we started. In fact, the Economic Society started as an idea that last year, and I think we started in last September. Today, this idea became real. The Economic Society started with one person. Today, we have more than 20 members of staff dedicating their time and efforts to serve our audience. Next September, we will celebrate our first year. Over the last few months, we have organized a number of successful activities. We've got actually here three courses, complete courses in econometrics, with more than 120 participants from at least 7 Arab countries. We had also our first workshop in January on the Egyptian economy in transition. We started our lecture series with more than 150 participants, and we're still going on. So I really don't want to take much of your time. I'm really happy to be with you today and to welcome you all. And I will hand the mic over to Dr. Sharif to start the workshop today and to present the first presentation. Thank you all for being here today. And Dr. Sharif, the mic is with you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hani. Before proceeding with our presentations, I would like to spend a few minutes on explaining why we selected trade and growth to be our theme for this year. Since trade growth nexus is still an open question in the literature, an extensive range of researchers has emerged to study the potential relationship and direction of causality between international trade and economic growth. Contributing to the above literature, we have invited applicants for submitting their empirical work on the study of growth impact of trade openness. The choice of this theme is promoted by three observations. First, the emergence of new global economic architecture in which developing countries play a major role. Second, the causal relationship between trade openness and economic growth is not yet clear and conclusive. And third, and the most important, the political and the economic fluxes ongoing in our region, the Middle East and North African region, which reshapes the entire political and the economic map of this region. In this regard, we have announced our call for papers with deadline 1st of June, and we have actually received 6 papers. And after careful screening, we selected 3 to be qualified for our shortlisted articles and to be presented today, inshallah. The 3 papers have been carefully reviewed. The competition was severe due to the high quality of the submitted papers. However, based upon the originality of the work, pursued academic publishing standards, policy implications, and topic compatibility, only 1 paper has been selected to receive our annual award that worth £500 British and an achievement certificate from Egypt Scholars Economic Society. However, we will announce the winning paper at the end of the workshop, inshallah. So let me leave the mic for our distinguished uh, presenters. We have today three presentations, and we will arrange them based upon the date of submission. The first submitted paper is going to be the first presentation, and accordingly, as shown in our workshop agenda, let me first introduce to you the author of the first paper, Dr. Muhammad Abbas. Dr. Muhammad Abbas is a lecturer of economics and faculty of commerce, Aswan University in Egypt. He obtained his PhD from Helwan University, Faculty of Commerce and Business Administration, Economic and Foreign Trade Department in 2007. He previously worked as an associate professor of economics and Faculty of Business Administration, Majmah University in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia from 2009 to 2015. He has published a number of international journals, among are American Journal of Business and Management, Applied Economics and Finance, and Applied Econometric and International Development. Dr. Abbas is kindly going to present his paper today for us, Merchandise Export Demand Function for Egypt, a panel data analysis. Please, Dr. Abbas, you can start.
Thank you for organizing community and your workshop is distinguished and your efforts estimated, and it's very necessary to enhance our economic and knowing the problems that face our economy and trying to solve these problems in scientific way. My paper, Merchandise Export Demand Function for Egypt, a panel data analysis. Let me first begin with, there is no doubt that exports exports play an important role in the economic growth and development of many countries. In this respect, measuring income and the price elasticity of export demand has received much attention because of the implications on trade policy and balance of payments issues. So my paper concentrates on demand side, but we must or not neglect the supply side. We must pay many attention in next research or papers. My paper, as you see in presentation in PowerPoint, I use a panel techniques to determine the key factors that affect export demand for Egyptian exports. You will see with me in this slide what steps that I use to do this my paper. Merchandise export demand function. This study empirically estimates the critical parameters of merchandise export demand function for Egypt by using annual time series cross-section data for the period 1990 to 2008, and by applying fixed effects model. The estimated demand function for real merchandise export in Egypt.
Yes? You can actually start your presentation by using the next and back buttons. Can you follow me? Can you see the slides, Dr. Muhammad?
Oh no, I speak you from telephone. from mobile and IC to the computer.
Ah, okay.
You can
see
ah,
you can see the slides at all?
no.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
can't.
Okay. So if you would like me to move the slides point after point, and you
Okay.
just tell me move to the next slide, move to the next slide. Tell me the slide number so I can scroll and show our participants what you are actually speaking about.
Okay.
Okay.
The slide research overview first. The study empirical estimates. The number 2, slide number 2. Study empirically estimate the critical parameters of merchandise export demand function for Egypt by using annual time shared cross-section data 1990 to 2008 and by applying fixed FX model. The estimated demand function for real merchandise exports in Egypt involves the following variables. But these variables, we reach data for it, and I think it's the key factors that affect the merchandise export in Egypt. These variables are the real gross domestic product in the importing countries, the relative price variable, the real exchange rate of the importing countries. Next slide. Which table 1 illustrates some key trade indicators of Egypt in tourist enterprises. That from this table we can table 1 illustrates that real total trade has increased from $38 billion to more than $100 billion during the period 1990 to 2008, with average growth rate about 5.8%. This accompanied with a rising trade GDP ratio from 59% to 72% at the same period. This means that Egypt's economy during this period directed to be more trade opening economy. Merchandise export in 1990, $5.2 billion. It increased to $23.8 in 1908. Total exports increased from 14.12 to 46.39. Total trade increased from $38 billion to more than 100 or more than $100 billion. That means that I said before that what I said before that Egypt directed to be more open economy. Next slide. Table 2 illustrates that the trade account was suffering from increasingly deficit along the period. The deficit GDP ratio was decreasing from 15.7 to 9.1 at the study period. This means that Egypt's economy is directing toward diminishing the deficit, and at the point in the future the deficit will finish. But that needs more effort to do that. And also, as it can be seen from table 2, the real value of merchandise but we know, but since 2011, and what the political issues that Egypt witnessed in the last period, in 2013, the export achieved $26 billion, and the import $60 million. That means that the gap increased. The gap has increased. Next slide, table 3. It illustrates the structure of real value of merchandise exports in constant prices. We observe that some merchandise exports have increased and others decreased, but the obvious decrease in fuel exports from 29.3% to 7% in 2008. And figure 1 on the next slide illustrates that it illustrates the differences between the importance of the merchandise exports, difference of merchandise exports between the two comparison years. Fuel 29.3%, in 20 decreased to 7. In 2008 decreased to 7%, and another hand militants increased from 8.9% to 44%. It was a big increase in the study period. Table 4 in the next slide illustrates the Egypt's real merchandise export and yearly average growth rates by country in constant prices. We see that many countries, the exports have increased to many countries, but Italy represents the destination has a huge increase from $471 billion in 1990 to $2 billion to 49.05 billion in 2008, more than $2 billion. This table represents Egypt's main trading partners. The next slide illustrates also figure 2, the structure of merchandise export in the study period, which illustrates the Egypt's main trading partners of real value of merchandise exports in 1990 and 2008, as it can be seen from also from the figure. Italy has the highest share in real merchandise exports in 1990 and in 2008. The relative importance in some countries in total real value of merchandise exports has been decreased, such as Germany, Singapore, and United States of America. On the other hand, the shares of some countries at the same period obviously increased, such as India and Spain. In the other countries, we didn't observe big changes between two comparison years. We now next slide. Research methodology. In this study, the model to be estimated would be how has three variables: real value of merchandise export from Egypt to country I during the year T in constant prices. RGDP is the real gross domestic product in each of the importing country I during the year T in constant prices. The relative price variable is given by the indicative ratio of Egypt's consumer price index to consumer price index of the importing country I during the year T. Finally, the real exchange rate of importing country is the year T. I use the panel data technique effect model by Schur, seemingly a regulation, and the results that I obtained shows that the trade partners' real income, relative price, and trade partners' real exchange rate elasticities carry their theoretical expected signs. Number two, the elasticity coefficient of a trade partner's real income is positive, significant, and smaller than unity. This means that changes in trade partners' real income ceteris paribus will lead to nearly small changes in real merchandise export earnings. For instance, a 1% increase in foreign real income induces a 0.077% increase in real export earnings. The estimated relative price elasticity is negative, significant, and smaller than unity, which means that changes in relative price will lead to nearly small changes in real export earnings. The elasticity coefficient of a trade partners real exchange rate is positive, significant, and smaller than unity. This implies that as trade partners' real exchange rate increase, Egypt will capture a relatively small portion of the real value of merchandise exports. For instance, a 1% increase in trade partner real exchange rate induces 0.34% increase in real export earnings. And next slide illustrates the regression results, estimation results for the fixed model. And the next slide, the concept of every country, special concept for every country as a fixed model enable us to do that. And the next slide illustrates the R squares 999, which illustrates that the regression, the variables that we have to choose explain most of the changes in export merchandise exports. And finally, I want to thank you and to this distinguished to organize this distinguished workshop. Thank you all. Hello?
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed, for being here, and thank you for your fruitful presentation. any one of the participants who would like to ask Dr. Mohammed a question or add a comment can either raise his hand or write in the chat question for Dr. Mohammed. And we have a question. Professor Hisham, you may start asking the question, please. Can you please, Dr. Mohammed, mute your mic until you listen to the question, and then you can unmute it and answer the question.
Okay, do you hear me? Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Really, I have many questions, but I will try to focus on important ones. So we have to go directly to the model Dr. Mohammed used. First of all, I have to thank Dr. Mohammed for his presentation. Dr. Mohammed used only three explanatory variables and ignored many variables can be included in the model. For example, if I want to, as a country, to import some goods from other country, I have to look at many prices. Domestic price for my country, price in the export country, and the world price. Dr. Mohammed just used relative price between the two countries and ignored the world price. This very big issue should be answered. Dr. Mohammed must give strong reason for selecting this only three explanatory variables. Other things, Dr. Mohammed add our GDP in important country. So what about the domestic consumption in this country? The country wants to import if the country has deficit in their production, or in its production. So we have to add domestic consumption in the model. This is number one, question number one. So I need Dr. Mohammed to give us strong reasons for selecting this said explanatory variables only. Second issue is adjust R-square is nearly 100%. This very big issue. If I receive this paper from any journal and I found this R-square is nearly 100%, this will be a problematic and problem issue. I have to find explanation for this issue. Other things, Dr. Mohammed results is not including policy implication, is not including, Dr. Mohammed should make link between the results of this paper and results comes from the previous studies and give some policy implication, give some recommendation for the policymaker. This in general, but Dr. Mohammed, if you want to publish this paper or if you want to make some editing and improve the paper, you have to return back to your introduction and divide this introduction into two parts, into two subtitles. First introduction, that is just include a brief discussion of the title of the paper and the importance of the paper. Why this paper is important, why this paper, what is the contribution of the paper. Second, you can put a new title under literature, under a theoretical issue, theoretical background, to put all of these tables and graphs under these subtitles. I will take some longer time, so I have as I said, two main issues, a value of R square, adjusted and R square. Second, strong reason for just focus on the three explanatory variables. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed. You may start asking, please. You may start answering the questions. Dr. Hisham, can you mute the mic, please?
Okay.
In this model, I used domestic price to the domestic price in the importing country, because the model, final model here, I like the graph sensitivity or gravity model I think the link, the price in the importing country which we have concentrate in is the important to me on the other world prices. Because some of these countries related with us with preferential trading committees or like that. I think the relative price between domestic price here and domestic price in the importing country is suitable for me for this study. I think on the other hand in consumption here in Egypt and other countries, there are many countries limited data limited limits يعني was the limit me to do more in this study, and in the other hand, I concentrate on the demand side in the importing countries more than the here in the economic currency in Egypt. I said that is before the I concentrate on demand side, not on supply side, but we need to here to increase our exports, to make many changes in our production technologies or policy instruments, investment regulations that all can all effect in the increasing merchandise exports, to increasing merchandise exports. I think that's very. So I think it's this style of model limit me to do this video.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Dr. Hisham, would you like to comment on these answers? Would you like to ask further questions? Because we also have Mr. or Dr. Hosam, Dr. Shahir, and Dr. Rasha would like to ask questions. If there are any further comments from your side, Professor Hisham?
Just I want to ask him if he tries to check random effect model before using fixed effect model or not.
Hello?
Dr. Mohammed, you can answer.
Fixed effect model. I've used Shure model, seemingly a related regression model, okay, to obtain these results. And I used IBS, and that's all. The journal which published this paper request this data, and I send it to the journal. But I think it's the panel data in this the techniques and the results of this that you've seen in this display or which I showed in table 5 or table 6 display a high R square and Durbin Watson 1.96 and its statistics 458. I think it's very good results for this regression.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. We have more questions from Dr. Hussam Abdel Qadir. Please, you can ask a question. Dr.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation and for the society for organizing this event. Thanks for the presenter. I have two things to raise here. First, in the slide number 16, if I remember well, that I find something like a change in income of a country I by 1% approximately will rise the Egyptian exports to this country by 0.77%. And this is described as a small impact. I think here we are using, or the presenter used, logs of values. So this will represent elasticity. So it is better to describe it as more elastic or less elastic instead of speak about the impact directly. Because if we compare 1% change and the impact of this change is already about 0.77%, this will not be a small at all. But if we explain this by elasticity, less than 1 will be small for sure. The second thing is a question for the presenter. Why you are using real exchange rates here if you are speak about the international trade? However, I think it is better to use the real effective exchange rates. Thank you very much.
But I know it's more suited to the real effective exchange rate. But many data limits for many countries that I used in my study hasn't published it in World Economic Indicator, and I want to depend on one source, not in many sources in our for data to our study. It will be more credibility. I need to say credibility to my study. So that I used real exchange rate, not real effective exchange rate. Okay. And for first observation that small changes in real merchandise export earnings, 1% increase in foreign real income induces 0.77% increase in real export earnings. It's less than 1%. I think it's to be more effective must be more than 1. I think it to be more effective. But at all, it's positive and significant and more suitable for this period for in Egypt. suitable for the in this period for any day. دكتور علي. الو.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Ibrahim. Dr. Hani. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Ibrahim. We have another question from Dr. Shahir. Dr. Shahir, you can start, please.
Thank you. So first, let me thank you for organizing this workshop. It's really a pleasure to be with you today. I have actually two clarification questions and two suggestions for Dr. Muhammad. So the first clarification question, I was just wondering what's the source of the prices that he used in his paper. It was not mentioned in the presentation. And that a second clarification question as well, I was wondering whether the regressions have been run at the, using data at the product level, or it's just at the bilateral level between Egypt and its trade partners. Because if he used data at both the product and the bilateral level, I think it's very important to introduce product dummies along with the country dummies that he introduced in his data set. Then the third question, the first suggestion, I second Dr. Hissam in using the real effective exchange rate data set because it's much more, reliable in terms of in the empirical work in general. And I suggest the data set that has been constructed by Darvas in 2013. It's a very comprehensive data set, including the real effective exchange rate for most of the countries at the world level, and they are downloadable, so you can use them in your regression. And finally, in this literature of estimating demand equations for exports, usually there is a very important variable that's calculated and that's introduced in the regression, and that's called the addressed demand to a country. And usually the way we compute the addressed demand to a country, it's basically a weighted sum of imports of the partners of country I as a function of their contribution to the exports of this country I for a basic year. For a base year in order to compute those weights. So it's basically the sum of imports of a country, of different countries with respect to a country, and the contribution of the exports from Egypt to each of these countries. And this will help you have, a term that can be considered as a proxy for both the demand and the size of the partner and the size of exports of Egypt. And thank you, and I will stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Shahir. Dr. Muhammad.
Thank you, Bob. I agree with you that real effective exchange rate is more suitable for this study. And thank you for that. I will download 2015 statistics and try to do the research with this new statistics. On the other hand, you see the relative price variable is price indicative ratio of Egypt's consumer price index to consumer consumer price index of the importing country item here T. I here use the domestic price to domestic price in the other countries. And the result it's very significant because when the import be more the prices in the other countries increase, our exports be more cheaper than relatively cheaper than before, and the results assure that. And RGDP, real gross domestic product, in each of the importing country, either in the USD, in constant prices. In this study, I concentrate on the three key factors that most studies before assure that these factors affect exports and with significant and all these studies assure that. And so I think the three import factors that affect exports, these three factors, so I use these factors only, and I couldn't apply other factors that regulations or enabling data. That I think it's we will use variables. I think it's not be will not express to the in a precise way to these factors. I think it's these factors is the most important factors that affect merchandise exports.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. We have another question from Dr. Rasha El-Kurdi from Helwan University. Dr. Rasha, you may ask your question, please.
First, let me thank you and all of you. First question I want to ask you about the model. Did you check the problems like heteroscedasticity, multicollinearity? Because I highly suspect that the model have a multicollinearity problem because R square is highly increasing 99%. I think you should think about this problem in the model. And then I want to ask you about if you test if you should use random or fixed effect model. I think you should use random effect model in your paper and use dummy variables for the countries. I think this should improve your results. And finally, the finally question, if you can tell us the difference between elasticity and the slope when you're explaining your results. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rasha. Dr. Mohammed, can you please raise your voice so everyone can clearly listen to your answer? Dr. Mohammed? Dr. Muhammad Ibrahim, we're waiting for your answer. Are you there?
Effect model, because the random effect model needs more observations, and I couldn't by use econometric software.
Dr. Muhammad, I'm sorry, could you repeat your answer from the beginning because your voice was not clear? Could you repeat your answer from the very beginning?
Okay. I want to thank all to their observations, and I used the text model for symmetry array definition, because random effect model needs big, more observations. With these observations, I have 266 observations to more than 12 or 13 or 14 countries. Random effect, the attempt, I couldn't do it by random effect, but I think the text effect can we can attain a good result by text effect, and I think the result is direct, agree with theoretical or economic theory, and is a range of many that many studies in the world reached to it about the elasticity of income and prices to export at all or merchandise export. So data anyway can can't enable us to do what we want to do. So I used text model. Okay. I didn't hear the first question about prices from Russia, and I request to repeat the question again.
Hi again. The second question, did you check the model problems like hetero and the multicollinearity? Because I suspect that you have multicollinearity problem because the highly R square. The second question about, could you please tell us the difference between elasticity and the slope when you're explaining your results? Thank you.
I have checked the unit root test about RBS in the vanilla, and there is the result assures that there is no unit root in the series, and I think it's there is minute. I wish to do co-integration techniques, but I couldn't. I can't. I couldn't do that. Many software techniques basically enable me to do that negotiating API. But this way maybe I think it's do more about this change test, but I didn't publish it in paper, and I think it's I do many tests for this data, but multiple reality having to check in this area, but I think it's the result can be checked again, and I think the result in this area can be used. I can practical. I think it's very practical and do agree with economic change.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed, for your esteemed presentation and the fruitful discussion from all our participants. We would like to proceed to our second presentation in today's workshop. The second paper submitted is co-authored by Professor Dr. Shahir Zaki and Professor Fida Karam. However, Dr. Shahir is the presenting author today. Professor Dr. Shahir Zaki is a citizen of Egypt at present. Professor Shahir is an assistant professor at the Faculty of Economics and Political Science, Cairo University. In this position, Professor Shahir teaches and conducts research on trade policy and macroeconomics. He is also a part-time economist at the Economic Research Forum, Cairo, Egypt, and a consultant for the World Bank and the International Trade Center, Geneva. He holds a BA, Bachelor in Economics, from Faculty of Economics and Political Science, Cairo University, and Master of Arts in Economics from Université Paris, Panthéon-Sorbonne, and a PhD in Economics from the same university, Sorbonne University. His research interests include international trade, trade policy, trade and services, applied economics, and macroeconomic modeling. He has published numerous studies in the International Trade Journal, the World Trade Review, Economic Modeling, and Applied Economics. Professor Shahir today will present his paper, Trade Volume and Economic Growth in MENA Region Goods or Services. Please, Professor Shahir, you may start.
So, thanks, Dr. Sharif, for allowing me to present this paper, and thanks also for the Egypt Scholars Economic Society for for shortlisting this paper. So I'll be presenting a paper co-authored with my colleague Fida Karam from the Gulf University for Science and Technology. It has been published in the Applied Economics Journal, and it's basically trying to examine the nexus between trade volume and economic growth, and which one is more important, whether goods or services. So I'll just a technical question. I just want to know how to move the slide. Oh yes, it's fine. Okay. As you can see, I mean, in the just to start with, why is this topic important? At least for two main reasons. So the first reason, from an economic point of view, there is a huge literature on the impact of trade liberalization on growth, and it has not been conclusive. So some studies found a significant impact, others didn't find this impact. But I mean, a smaller literature focused on the distinction between goods and services. From an empirical point of view, why do we focus on the MENA region? Because first, it has been neglected in the trade and growth literature. And moreover, this region has a huge competitive advantage in services. And this is why, I mean, despite the fact that it has this competitive advantage, but the services sector still faces several impediments in terms of liberalization, which is not the case of goods that experienced a significant liberalization, especially in the last 2 decades. So what we do in this paper, so basically we investigate the effects of trade and services and goods on the growth performance in the MENA region. We undertake this empirical work at 2 levels. So a first level at the macro level and a second level at the sectoral level for 21 MENA countries between 1960 and 2011. And finally, we try to decompose the GDP growth to disentangle the contribution of trade and goods versus trade and services to growth. Actually, what we found, so first, there is a clear positive association between real GDP and both service and goods trade. And 2 interesting findings. So the first one is that the marginal effect of services trade on real GDP actually decreases as trading goods increases, despite the fact that the overall positive effect of services, of trade and services on real GDP. And this, I mean, is mainly attributed to the fact that the services sector is still facing several impediments in terms of standards and norms in the MENA region. And finally, when we decompose the GDP growth with different components, investment, human capital, and so on and so forth, we found that there is a greater contribution of goods trade to the GDP growth compared to the one of the trade and services, and even greater than the one of the contribution of tertiary enrollment, which measures human capital. And actually, this is mainly again explained by the fact that the commitments of the MENA region at the WTO and the liberalization of services is still lower than the goods one. So I'll just present some stylized facts, then move quickly to the methodology and the empirical results, what we found in terms of the decomposition of the GDP growth, and I will conclude. So as you can see, the GDP growth in the MENA region has been following the world growth in terms of its cyclicality, in terms of booms and busts. And this is mainly explained by, first, so the trade in the MENA region, which is, if measured as share to GDP, is substantially high. That's one point. And the second point, given that the growth in the MENA region is mainly driven by oil prices, given the important proven oil reserves and oil exports coming out from the MENA region, making the correlation between the MENA region growth and the world growth highly positive. And then if we move to the, as I mentioned before, if we compare the share of trade to GDP and the share of services trade to GDP, we can find that the share of trade is significantly higher than the one of services. And actually, this points out the fact that trade and services in the MENA region is still facing several impediments. Even, if we compare it to other regions, especially when we take the ratio between total trade and services. If we have a look at the country level, we can see also a similar observation, is that which is that most of the countries, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Tunisia as well, they liberalized their goods much more than their services, leading to greater trade in goods rather than trade in services, despite the fact that they have a competitive advantage in this sector. Then, by just observing a simple correlation between growth and trade in goods and versus trade in services, we can see that there is a slight positive correlation between them. So if we here, as you can see, on the x-axis we have the average growth of goods, and on the y-axis we have the average GDP growth, and we can see that there is a positive correlation between them, which is also the case for trade in services. Okay. So this is regarding the main stylized facts that we observed in our paper. Then I'm going to move to the methodology and the data, but I have a problem in moving the slides. I don't know why. Yes, here it is. So in terms of methodology, as I mentioned before, we have we've estimated a growth regression following the seminal paper of Mankey, Romer, and Vail of 1992, that introduced in a solo model different variables. So we run the same regression, the same growth model at two levels, at the macroeconomic level and the sectoral level. Our dependent variable is the GDP, real GDP, and our variables of interest are both real trade in goods and real trade in services, and then we introduce a bunch of control variables that have been introduced in this literature, such as investment measuring physical capital, school enrollment measuring human capital, the population growth, land to have a comprehensive factors of production framework, and then we introduce our two main variables of interest, which are the services, trade in services, and then the trade in goods. Later, we interact trade in goods with trade in services in order to disentangle the marginal impact of services when trade in goods increases on growth. Given the importance of oil, we also introduce an oil dummy, and we interact this oil dummy with both trade in goods and trade in services. So this is the macroeconomic level. As for the sectoral level, we run this regression at the three sectors level, agriculture, industry, and services for our 21 countries. And we introduce just a dummy whether the trade is services or not, as you can see here, which is the dummy variable serve. We interact this dummy variable with the variable trade, and again we introduce an oil dummy to control for oil exporters in the MENA region. Our data come mainly from the World Development Indicators of the World Bank, and for the trade and services we used mainly also this aggregation from the World Development Indicators between 1960 and 2011. For the empirical results, so as you can see in table 3, we have some classical results in terms of investment, population growth, schooling. So investment is positive and significant, schooling is positive and significant as well, and both trading goods and trading services, they are positive and highly significant regardless the way we estimate the equations. Whether we use random effects, fixed effects, or even the dynamic panel using the Arellano bond technique. When we interact goods and services, we found also a negative and significant impact, showing that the higher the trading goods, the lower the marginal effect of trading goods on growth when trade and services increase. And this is clear in figure 5, as you can see here, there is the greater trading goods, the lower the marginal effect of trading services on GDP. And this is mainly attributed to the restrictiveness that we have in several services sector in terms of norms and standards, especially in the financial services, in telecommunication, and so on and so forth. The same conclusion holds when we use a more disaggregated level for the sectoral results. And if we decompose the GDP, so we can see that mainly, as you can see here, the contribution of trading goods and trading services to growth, especially for goods, is much greater than for services. And even during the financial crisis, the contribution of trading goods was highly negative in 2009, as you can see here in figure 6. But the services sector, given that its level is lower, so its variation also was lower. If we observe this at the country level, a consistent result, across the board for most of the countries, is that trading goods contributes more than trading services to growth, and except for Lebanon, given its comparative advantage in financial services. So here, this is the estimated contribution of trading services and trading goods. So here we use, the classical way of computing things here, where we have the growth rate for each variable. We have the estimated coefficient for each variable. So we multiply the growth rate by the coefficient, and then we determine the share of, we calculate the share of this multiplication to the total growth rate of the variable. And we can see here that the share of goods and services is as high as investment, and even much greater than schooling. And this is, consistent for most of the periods and for most of the estimation techniques. I will skip the country results for time constraint. So to conclude, our main results show there is a positive association between GDP and both trading goods and trading services. As I mentioned, there is the marginal effect of trading services on real GDP decreases as trading goods increases, despite the overall positive impact of trading services. And as I mentioned, there is a greater contribution of trading goods compared to trading services, and even more than investment and more than tertiary enrollment. So from a policy standpoint, clearly the MENA region has still a long way in order to have a more integrated and a more liberalized services sector. It's more difficult to liberalize services because it's not just a tariff that we're going to decrease, but it's a whole bunch of norms and standards that should be harmonized and allied to the international standards, and to make the the MENA region benefiting more from its comparative advantage in these sectors. And I will stop here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Professor Shahir, for this themed presentation. Any of the participants who would like to ask a question or would like to add a comment, please raise your hand or write in the chat box. I guess Professor Hisham is not raising his hand. We have a question from, please, everyone who asked a question and raised his hand in the previous presentation, could you please press the raise your hand button one again to lower your hand, so I would not miss whoever has asked before with whoever wants to ask a question again. Yes, so we have Dr. Rasha from Helwan University. Please, you may start.
Okay. First of all, presentation. First of all, in the model, you have interaction between the dummy variable and the other variable, I think dummy trait. Why you choose dummy variable trait? Only dummy variable and the trait, ignoring the other variables. I think in the slide presenting the coefficients, the land coefficient is 0.00, what it represents, and how we could explain the zero land coefficient. Thank you.
Okay, so just for the first question regarding the dummy question, actually I introduced only the oil dummy and I interacted with the trait variable. So the trait variable is not a discrete variable, it's not, I mean, a binary variable, it's a continuous variable with the value of trait at the sectoral level in equation 2. And then I interacted with the oil dummy just to see to what extent the effect of trade changes when the country is an oil exporter compared to an oil importer. So this is for the first question. For the second question, and again, I mean, it's the same thing in the first regression as well. And for the second question regarding the land coefficient, actually, we introduced land just to have, I mean, a comprehensive growth equation with different factors of production. So we have capital measured by investment, we have human capital measured by schooling, we have the population growth, which I mean is a classical variable in such models, and we have land as well, which measures the scarcity of a limited factor of production. Its coefficient is very low because actually in the literature the effect of land on growth has not been very conclusive. Some studies found positive, some studies found negative given its scarcity. In our study we found its effect was not that robust, but in general we can say that, I mean, we cannot claim that it's usually significant, because as you can see in the fixed effect and the Arellano bond, the land is not significant and its coefficient is very low, and even when it's significant, the value of the coefficient is very low. So one of the reasons behind this might be related, I mean, to the scarcity of land, and especially of the arable land, because this variable measures only arable land in the MENA region. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shahir. Professor Hisham, you would like to ask a question or a comment? Please, you may start.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Shahir, for your presentation. I have maybe 4 or 5 questions. The first one is, you mentioned that you will use argument growth model, but I found that your dependent variable is just log of RGDB. I think it's better to use a change in RGDB or growth rate in RGDB. I need to listen to your answer about this one. Second one is, may I ask you a silly question? RGDB, as you know, consists of C, I, G, and NX. So trade in goods and services are part in RGDB. So when we make a regression between the two variables, RGDB and NX, surely we will find that the good relationship between them. So what is your paper adds? The second one. Third one is about results in table 5A and 5B. Did you get this results from panel data regression or for just country regression? The fourth question is, you divide your period into two periods. One of them is between 2000 and 2010. 2010 included the global financial crisis. So what did you do to avoid the effect of this financial crisis on your data? Last one is, you have 13 explanatory variables, which is R2 much. So what's your answer about that? It's better to divide your regression into 2 or 3 equations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hisham. Shahir, please.
So for the first question, we used the log GDP, not the growth rate, because actually we wanted to have the elasticity of each of those components to the level of GDP, not the growth rate. So that's the first one. And again, the difference, I mean, in log measures growth rates. Second, for the second question, when I is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M, yes, I agree with you, but I remind you here that we're not estimating an identity for at least 3 reasons. So first, because we're not introducing neither consumption nor government, so it's not an identity. Second, there is no inventories because we're just including the gross fixed capital formation, not capitalization. And third, we're controlling also, I mean, as it was well documented, starting, I mean, the paper of Mankey, Romer, and Vail that improved Solo's model. We introduce other variables to avoid, I mean, such national accounts identity by introducing the population growth, schooling, and so on and so forth. So this is not clearly, I mean, an identity. And for the financial crisis, actually, in the paper we introduced year dummies in different regression to control for any specific I mean year event. So clearly the dummy for 2008 controls for the financial crisis. And I think that's it. Or perhaps I might missed something.
No, thank you very much. Good answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shahir. We have the last question from Dr. Hossein from Ain Shams University. Please.
First of all, I want to thank Dr. Shahir for his well-prepared presentation and selecting the topic. I have first comments and some questions. For oil dummy variables included in this model, I think it could be also explaining what we can call it the supply-side shocks. Also, for the slide number 33, when we are returning to this slide, we can see that the trade to GDP ratio in MENA countries in 2010 is higher than all other regions all over the world. However, this is unexpected. But I want to ask if this is returning to the financial crisis and its impact or the small impact on the MENA region or not. This is the first question. The second, for the measure of the investment, I think INV is an abbreviation for the investment. I want to sure this is in real term or not, and what is the measure used here? Is it the fixed capital accumulation or not? And after this, for the normality and heteroscedasticity test, I can't see it. However, we can't do any statistical inference without testing for these. So how can we depend on the model if we can't know the normality and the heteroscedasticity? Finally, thank you again, Dr. Shahir.
So thanks, Dr. Hossein, for your questions. Just to start with, for the first question, the share of trade in the MENA region is clearly, I mean, high, as you can see in the slide. But this is actually attributed to the low level of GDP compared to other regions. I mean, given the fact that here trade is computed by the fact that we have exports plus imports over GDP, So the ratio between total exports and imports over GDP is high, and this is clearly due first to the low level of GDP in the MENA region, and second to the high level of imports of the MENA region, given that here trade incorporates both goods and exports and imports. For the second question, yes, investment is measured in real term. It's the gross fixed capital formation. That we computed from the World Development Indicators, and we deflated all the variables using the CPI of with the base year 2005 to have real variables for all our variables. And finally, the regressions have been run, using robust standard errors to avoid any heteroscedasticity, even though we don't have a huge heteroscedasticity in our variables, given the fact that we have only a MENA region and most of the variables are relatively not that variant. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Sharif, I just have something to say to everyone. Besides thanking you all for your great discussions and presentations, I've got 3 colleagues here at Swansea University who are actually attending this workshop from my account. So one of my colleagues now, he's interested to ask a question to Dr. Shahir. My colleague is Dr. Ahmed Abadi, who works for the Central Bank in Saudi Arabia. So I'm going to pass the mic to him to ask Dr. Shahir his question. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. That was a great presentation. Thank you, Dr. Shahir. My question might stem from the fact that I haven't dealt with the methodology of the GMM before. So my question is, does this methodology account for structural breaks, given that in the stylized facts you mentioned that there was a periods of liberalization and freeing of trade? So there might have been a structural change in the flow of trade across countries. So does the methodology account for structural breaks? Thank you.
Shall I respond now, or?
Yes, please.
Okay. So actually, we didn't test for structural breaks, but as I previously mentioned, what we did is that we introduced year dummies in our regression, but we didn't. We didn't. In the empirical part, we didn't split our sample into different periods. We only did this when we computed the contribution of trade and services and trade and goods to the GDP growth of different countries.
Thank you so much. The other question that I have is, given the fact that the MENA countries have different economic structures, you have lumped, you gathered, you put in your analysis of the whole MENA countries. Some of them are oil-driven economies and oil-dependent, and some of them are not. They might be more of like a service and tourism dependent or whatever. So my question is, do you account for the fact that your sample is not a homogeneous grouping? Thank you.
Yes, in fact, we did this by at least 3 ways. So first, given the fact that we have we're using fixed effects model, and even for the dynamic panel, so we're controlling for any unobserved heterogeneity in our estimation. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we introduced also an oil dummy to make sure that we have this clear distinction between oil exporters and oil importers. Because as you mentioned, this is an important aspect of the MENA region. And finally, we tried also to introduce those control variables such as population growth, schooling, investment, which are relatively, I mean, which captures different aspects of the countries that we have in the data set. And as I mentioned before, we estimated this using, I mean, robust standard errors technique in order to avoid any heteroscedasticity that we might have in our sample.
Well, that explains a lot. Thank you so much, Shahir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shahir. Thank you all for your questions. If there are any other questions, please raise your hands. And if you don't have any question, please lower down your hand. Okay, if there is the case, thank you again, Professor Shahir, for this esteemed presentation. Thank you all for this discussion, and let us proceed, please, to our final presentation today by Dr. Raji El-Ragas, if I'm pronouncing it right. Dr. Raji El-Ragas is the head of the World Trade Organization unit in the Ministry of Agriculture in Saudi Arabia. He is near to completion of his PhD degree in economics from Swansea University in the United Kingdom. His research interests include economic growth, development, and international trade. He is also an active member of a number of professional associations as the Saudi Economic Association, the American Economic Association, and Agriculture and Applied Economic Association. Dr. Raji will present his paper today, Trade Openness and Economic Growth in MENA Region. Please, Dr. Raji, you may start. Dr. Raji?
Okay. No.
Dr. Raji?
Yes.
Yes. Everything's fine now. You can start.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. Thank you for. It's my pleasure to be with you today in this workshop to present my paper, which talk about trade openness and economic growth in MENA countries. And there is a problem in the slide. Can't move. Okay, that's right. So, as we know, the relation between openness and liquid national growth is a highly debated topic in the empirical literature, and they tried to answer the question whether trade openness lead to economic growth. Let's summarize what I'm going today talking about. So far, the empirical studies on trade openness and growth relationship have shown mixed results. In this paper, I'll explain those mixed results by measurement of trade openness and the use of appropriate methods. My plan in this presentation will be talk about background literature and data and empirical methods and main results and conclusion. As of yesterday, 3,927 articles in Economist, theoretical and empirical. All these articles try to answer single question: does trade promote growth. Why this happened in this articles, or this articles try to answer? Because there is a lack of definition of a trade openness and how measured from definition side or methodology side. From the measure side, which the last or other empirical studies try to answer the question if trade openness promote growth, they used different measures. For example, they used import trade share, or export trade share, or trade share, or adjusted trade share, or real trade share. So according to the differentiation between which method we are used, the empirical results move from positive, negative, or insignificant relation between trade, openness, and growth. So why do we need more research in this subject? Revise the growth openness relationship, novel measures of the trade openness, dataset many countries from 71 to 2011, account for heterogeneity among different countries using Banel method with heterogeneous effect. Our measures, what we have used in this article or this presentation, it's composite trade shape. It's introduced by Coley and Wilson 2011. It includes information about the country's contribution to the global economy and its influential impact on the world economy. And it contains the two factors: the proportion of given countries' total income generated by international trade, and the relative importance of the country's contribution in the world trade, which means in contrast of the other trade measures, CTS account two dimensions: world trade share and trade share. The methodology we have used in this table, it's correlated common group mean estimator. It's proposed by Besseron 2006 and 2011. One of the important features of this estimator, it's account for Banel heterogeneity among units. Here we count among countries. And to obtain this estimation, one needs to have in-country regression equations, each of which contain the cross-section average terms of y and x, as explained in the last equation in this slide. And this is our model who has log of GDP and log of open. So we have the coefficient of interest to estimate, that's beta hat. The estimator is just the average value of country-specific slope and reflect the long-run relationship between trade openness and per capita income. The data we have used in this presentation, it's balanced data set period from 71 to 2011, per capita, GDP, and openness, CTS. It's construct which proposed by Wilson and Wilson 2011. We move to the results, the table of the results here. And for conversion, we use two estimators, the main group, which not count the heterogeneity, cross-section heterogeneity, and the main group estimator from correlated mean group estimator, which account the heterogeneity. As the table shows, that the estimator of common correlated that account for both heterogeneity and the cross-section dependence, which represented this data, it's more positive and significant rather than other main group estimators. Normal main group estimator, which proposed by Besserant to 1995. So the main result we have this in this presentation is evidence of significant trade growth relationship in many countries. Coefficient of beta is significant in the common correlated mean group estimator, which count both for heterogeneity and cross-section dependence rather than in the main group, normal main group. Conclusion, openness and will continue to be instrumental for economic growth. Estimating, measure and estimation method is very important to gauge the true effect, heterogeneous effect of openness on a group. And thank you very much for this listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajeh, for this team presentation. Anyone of the participants who would like to ask a question, please raise your hands. We will start. We will start with Professor Hisham. Please, Professor Hisham.
Okay, I didn't raise my hands, but all I need to add is something to improve the paper. For example, in the introduction, the author must add a paragraph about what he or what the paper will do. I mean, the structure of the paper, this first. Second, what the importance of this paper. I mean, we have comments for just improving the paper. In research review, it's better to vote or discuss this research review in groups to be more attractive. Some words should be removed, like current essay in abstract should be current paper or current article. As well in measuring trade openness, we have the relation between. We use the relationship, not relation. And in the results, this part should be expanded to be more clear or more clearer. And lastly, conclusion should be include both implication and some recommendations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hisham.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hisham. Thank you for your valuable comments, which I will consider it in this paper to improve this paper. Thank you. Thank you very much.
If there are other questions, are you sure the people who are raising their hands are actually raising their hands, or they just left their hand raised from the last presentation, just making sure? Okay, if this is the case, then Rasha, Dr. Rasha from Halwan University, please.
Okay, thank you. I raise my hand. First of all, from the presenter to tell me about the recommendation of this paper and the mathematical model. I didn't see the mathematical model he estimated, and in the estimated model he put 0.07 and 0.03, in between brackets. I don't know if these numbers are p-test or standard deviation. I don't know what is it. Yes, previous slide. Yes, this slide. You put in between brackets 0.08 and 0.01, 0.031. What is that numbers? If it's standard deviation, I can see that it's significant, but if p-test is, I think we have problem here in this model. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Actually, it's sorry about that slide. I think it's a drop by mistake. It's actually it's standard error. It's underneath the value of the estimator. And I will add.
Okay.
I think Dr. Sharif, can you hear me now?
Yes. Please.
Yeah, I've got one. I think Dr. Rasha, what I understood from her question, just to ask Dr. Rajah how he construct the main measure of the open trade openness, and we would like him to properly explain this more about how, because I think as far as I understand, that's his main contribution in this paper by using a new measure of trade openness. And I will appreciate it if he just goes back to that slide, and explain more. Yeah, that slide, please. Can you just explain to us how this measure works? Because I just didn't have time to look carefully at this equation. Thank you. Just going back to this slide and tell us more how did you construct this first of all, or you just get the data from Scully and Wilson?
Thank you. Actually, this measure is which explained in the paper of Square and Wilson 2011 in World Economy Journal. Not consider 5 countries in the world to make it simple to understand. Let's consider 5 countries in the world, just some export and import for country 1. Divided by the average of sum of export and import for the other 4 countries. This component, it will be the first component of our measures, and you take times of export and import for countries 1 divided by its GDP. So the right when it's the trade share, the left side, it's the contribution of given country in the trade share. I hope that it's clear to understand Dr. Hani and Dr. Sharif.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rajah. Dr. Hani, would you like to add something? Would you like to comment on Dr. Rajah's answer?
No, fine, thank you.
Okay, then the next question by Dr. Shahir. Please, you may start.
Actually, I have a similar question to the one that has been already raised, but which is, regarding the measure of trade openness, because as it was mentioned before, the main contribution of this paper is the way Dr. Rajah measures trade openness. And I think it would be interesting to add something like a robustness check section where he runs different regressions with different trade openness measures and see to what extent the result changes or remains constant. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharif. Thank you. Actually, I run the robustness check, and I use the same data and the same period of time in the common measures which used in the other paper, which is trade shares So we compare between them and find the result for this measures and this estimator. It's better than other, which they are popular measures. It's in this slide, and this is which was in the other paper. So I did this robustness check for my comparison between my new measures and old measures. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have the last question from Dr. Hassan from Ain Shams University. Please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajah, for your presentation. I have very quick questions. First, for the measure of CTS, there is a subscribed with I, which I think represent the country. However, this measure should be already reflecting the time variation, and I think we should add T, because I may be represent for the country, specific country, but also this measure could be changed from time to time. This is the first. The second, if I'm correct, that you already selected 15 countries to be entered in your estimated model from MENA countries, and you didn't explain why you exclude some other countries. The third one is, what are the policy recommendations for policymakers in MENA countries? This paper can be, we can conclude from this paper. And finally, I think if you are looking for the heterogeneity between countries, it is already exists all over the world and between areas and inside the same areas of countries. So if you are looking to be very specific, I think you should turn to time series, not a panel data, I think, because this will give some more description in details for a specific country during a period of time. And in this case, you can use what we call it dummy saturation to explain what happened during this period for this country for different reasons. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Raja, please.
Thank you, Dr. Hisham. Thank you, Dr. Hisham, for... Hisham. Thank you, Hisham. Sorry. Thank you, Dr. Hisham. And this work is still, actually, this work is still under the process, and I would take and consider all your valuable comments in this final revision from my paper. And all your comments will consider, and it's really useful to take it under consideration.
Okay, if there are any more questions, please. Okay, if this is the case, then please let us to have 15 minutes break, and then we will get back to announce the winning paper, inshallah. See you after 15 minutes. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We are back again to our workshop, and in our final section today, we will announce the winning paper, inshallah. After the reviewing process, actually it was not an easy choice for our external reviewers to select one paper due to the high quality of the three submitted papers. The scientific committee actually was indifferent between the second and third paper, the one by Dr. Rajah and the one by Dr. Shahir and co-authored with Dr. Fida. But after all, only one paper is going and has to only one paper has to win our award that worth 500 British pounds and an achievement certificate from the Economic Society. So the winning paper is the paper by Professor Shahir and co-authored with Professor Fida Karam. Congratulations, Dr. Shahir, congratulations for your presentation and for your well-structured paper and for your contribution and your participation in our annual award and in our workshop. We will kindly contact you after the workshop, inshallah, to arrange how you prefer to receive your award. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for our scientific committee and their cooperation with us. Thank you for our organizers, and thank you all for the participants. Also, we would like to thank all the authors for their informative and well-prepared presentations, and we look forward for your participation in our future activities and workshops. See you all soon, inshallah.
Dr. Sharif, if you just allow me to say something before we...
Please,
just what actually Dr. Sharif has missed is that the selection, the committee for selecting the Best Paper Award consisted of 5 members. In fact, 3 members have voted for the winning paper, and the other 2 members have voted for Dr. Rajih paper. So I think that's one thing that we should have said. It's just a good opportunity to meet you all today. I'm really thankful and happy to be with you today. I would like to pass the mic to Dr. Shahir if he would like to say a few words before we close this workshop.
Well, actually, I would really, like to thank all of you for first for allowing me to present the paper, and then to to have such an interesting feedback from your side. And it's really, nice to see that Egypt Scholars Economic Society, encouraging young scholars and encouraging research in the region. So I do really hope that this will continue, and I'm definitely sure that this will help us even more. So really thanks a lot, and thanks for all the participants of the online workshop.
Thank you all very much for attending today, and see you all soon in our future events and workshops, inshallah. Thank you.